Hello and welcome to our daily sketching routine. It is Thursday, December 5th, 2024, and today's topic will be, I'm going to call it sketching my old OCs, which I started this page a few weeks ago, and that's what I was doing. I just remembered because well, before I get into all of that, welcome back if you are returning, welcome if you're new. So I sketch and post every day, and I use timers, which I'm going to use. And usually it's 5 minutes, sometimes it's 10 if I'm really deep diving into a topic. I think today let's do 10, because I've started to favor doing 10-minute sketches, but you can do 5 minutes or 1 minute if that helps. So yeah, I started remembering all my old OCs, and I've mentioned how that's kind of my favorite thing to do, is just create characters, or OCs as it's called, and as they call it nowadays. I never called it that, but apparently that's what it's called. And yeah, ever since I was little, because I basically got into art through reading comics when I was little and watching cartoons, and so yeah, I would just come up with characters, and sometimes I would draw a comic, but I would only get so far as maybe 1 to 3 pages at the most, and then just come up with some new characters. But in a way, maybe they share some kind of shared universe, I guess, because they're coming from my imagination. But I'll talk about these real quick. These are the ones I did a few weeks ago. So some of the earliest ones are these two demon brothers. And so I went through this phase where I was just reading these books, because I like reading fantasy novels, and there was like a phase where authors were writing about demons and angels and whatnot, and so I got into that. So I created these two demon brothers trapped on Earth, and they were pretty much villains, but they had to do good or something. I won't go too much into their story, because I mean, I came up with these when I was little. But yeah, I just kind of remembered their look. I mean, I'm changing so I'm going to sketch some today because I can remember more, but I'm going to change it up a bit. And then the next thing was sort of my anime phase, where like I like Robotech. That was my introduction to anime, and so you got to have the mechs and just kind of these kinds of post-apocalyptic characters. And so yeah, there's just a bunch of other characters I came up with, again, as far as basically their look and their origin story. Not too much beyond that. So, and I'm still doing that, except the story I'm working on now is probably the most, I mean, it may take the rest of my life to actually do, but that's okay. So yeah, let's just I'll just start sketching something. The next character that I can think of is, this is sort of in chronological order, but not really. In fact, let me start with this other idea. So one of the earliest so let me just kind of talk about some of the earliest things that I would draw. So obviously I would draw comic stuff that I saw, so Spider-Man and X-Men and stuff like that. So I'm not going to draw those since this is about my old OCs. But I definitely liked the supernatural type stuff. So, and then sometimes I would write. So if I didn't, because I couldn't draw as well, so that would be part of it, is I couldn't draw everything I had in my mind, but I would attempt to. Now, kind of going with the idea of these guys, I think they kind of sort of spawned, so to speak, another group of demons or supernatural creatures. And these were more, they had armor. So I think I just kind of liked the idea of armor. So some of these will be kind of rough, plus I'm getting warmed up here. Plus I'm coming up with, I'm doing my best to remember. I mean, I kind of know. And I'll kind of relate this to, because these are tropes and archetypes, and so they would show up. And I mean, I was just as much influenced by the stuff that I was into, the stuff that I was reading, as much as also just kind of coming up with my own ideas about it. So there were this group. So I had this idea for like a group of demons. And I always, even at kind of a young age, I kind of went with that kind of anti-hero vibe. So this one was more armored looking. And they were kind of the demon version of Transformers, in that like they had like different characters in the group. So you kind of had your Megatron and Starscream characters. So these guys had armor, and it's funny because so these I came up when I was little, but then they would show up in comics, because obviously the artists who were drawing the comics, they were older than me, but they were the ones that I copied or looked up to. So anyway, these were, so that was one really early idea, was armored demons, or chaos warriors is really what it is. And I've mentioned how in some ways I've always been kind of interested in the Elric saga, even if I haven't, I'm reading it. I haven't even finished all of them, but I'm reading a collected version, like volume 1. But that idea has always been kind of in my mind. So they were kind of a mix of the gargoyles. There was like a cartoon series, Gargoyles. So it was kind of like that, something kind of gothic. Then the next one, or one of the earliest ones, was this idea of the armored suit. And so I would draw these, and I used to have these, the drawings, and this was kind of from the in one of my videos talking about my RPG origin story. I talked about how I bought the Robotech role-playing game and I didn't know how to play them, but like I didn't understand it, but they would have schematics of the mechs, and so I would basically draw these schematics. So there would be these guys in suits, and I would just kind of, just do kind of a, I guess a cutaway is what it's called. And I'm just making this up. It was kind of like this. I did several of them, and I would go into a lot of detail. But these would be like the Gundams, I guess. Like, I didn't know a whole lot about all the different anime because they weren't that available back then. You can watch a lot of them. And yeah, there were shows like Voltron, so it was somewhat like that. So I would do these. So that's 10 minutes. I'll start another one. I'll just sketch. And then yeah, I would do the cutaway, and then you could see the inside and like the control panels. So this was sort of my Voltron. This one is more like that style of robot. So yeah, I was pretty much influenced by cartoons and comics, books, novels. And then I would do like a explanation of what it was, and I would just make up the most technical, made up sounding names. So that would be the inside parts, and would just have a lot of bric-a-brac, made up details. Give him a suit. So then we had, yeah, I went through that phase. I used to have artwork of all of these, but I also mentioned in that origin story, or maybe some other video, where I had to throw away all of my artwork, which is kind of a tragedy, but that's all right. It's life. And then I came up with this one character that, because this was, again, during the time in comics where I was very influenced by it. So this guy, he had a power suit, and basically it was like my Iron Man, I guess, even though I didn't really read a lot of Iron Man. I mostly read X-Men. So he would have a power suit, and I guess he was also kind of like a Power Ranger, even though I think at the time I didn't really know about Power Rangers. Because what would happen is every once in a while I would buy like a Japanese, I think new type was the thing, but like I didn't have that much money because I was a kid, and it would be really expensive because it was imported. So I would just wear out the new type, and then like me and my friends would, like, I would buy one, and then they would buy another issue, and yeah, that was our internet. That was our YouTube. But during this time, there were a lot of characters that, like in comics, that had the Colossus from the X-Men, the Stripes, that were basically construction lines, but then the artist would just turn it into the costume. So this was from the time period where you just had this over-the-top like shoulder pads and like the cybernetic arm and just masks. I'll just give this guy a blank face. So yeah, I came up with this guy that had a suit, power suit. And a bunch of just pointless pouches. And just excessive. Everything was just over the top. Like, why have just one gun when you can have two big old guns? And then if you wonder, how is it possible? You could just say, well, the suit allows him to do it. So that's my power suit guy. And then I went through a phase where I was just making up superhero groups. like I, like I mainly just wanted their dynamic, kind of like the X-Men, where they would just have different like groups, like the New Mutants and like the main group, and then they became, some of the original ones became X Factor, and then you had Excalibur. So I liked all the mutant books. So then, yeah, there was a phase where it was cool to have people be in trench coats. So you had Gambit, for example. So I came up with a guy a group that gotta have the trench coat. So let's give this guy a trench coat, and I think this guy was able to and it's funny because this kind of led to the Matrix, didn't it? But this guy was able to like travel to different dimensions and with his group and open up portals. So I guess in a way he was my Doctor Strange. So he would open up these, they would travel, him and his team, ragtag team, his motley crew of superheroes would travel to different dimensions and fight evil. And he would just kind of round up like different superheroes from different universes, and it was kind of my excuse to come up with OCs, basically, with characters. So I had that guy, and he had to have like the 90s hair of superhero hair, where it's just kind of going everywhere. And then yeah, I would just have different groups. So you had I mean, they were just rip-offs of the X-Men, or my version of like the New Mutants, because when I was younger I identified with the New Mutants. So you had a girl who was basically Jean Grey. I'm not going to draw all of them. As I do this, I'm going to think about who else. So you had your Jean Grey type. Who had some kind of psychic powers. And I had like a fire guy. This guy could, and again, he had to have like the cool hair. And yeah, I would always do these team shots, group shots, and just detail them. Basically the first issue cover or a splash page. So this guy could somehow use fire. And then I I was always into supernatural stuff. I mean, I still am. So I'll stop. Well, that's 10 minutes. I'll start another one and kind of wrap up this video. It's a trip down memory lane. Kind of just put this on the table here. And I'll do another video where they're not. So these are defunct old characters. These are old characters that will probably not go beyond this. But yeah, there would always be a group shot where you could see everybody. The kind of famous Marvel universe, I think is what it's called, the comics, where it just showed a gazillion superheroes. I didn't come up with as many villains. But yeah, I was gonna say, like, I'll do another video about a little bit more current things. I mean, more then I moved into more like the world building, because in a way I kind of found that was what was lacking, was world building. Like, I'd come up with characters, but they weren't really in a universe. But I mean, in a way, I guess they are. I was always into supernatural stuff. I was always into kind of like dystopian types things, which would later kind of become steampunk, I guess. And then, of course, like fantasy stuff. But then because of the supernatural stuff, it kind of turns into dark fantasy. And I'm fine with all of those things. Like, I don't mind these tropes. I think that if they're done in an interesting way, it's good. See if I can remember anything else. I mean, I was obviously, and then of course, like fantasy groups, which is basically what my current storyline is about. But yeah, I was influenced by role-playing games. So just to kind of make this look somewhat unified, we got about another 5 minutes. All of this kind of led to what I talked about in the RPG origin story. So that was a big influence as far as playing role-playing games and world building. And I'll talk about it more. I actually wanted to do a video. I was kind of thinking I would do a video about like the magic system. So maybe tomorrow, I don't know. But because the story I'm currently working on, it'll have magic, but I'm still kind of thinking about it. I mean, because since I'm pretty visual, I feel like I'm cool with that. Like, I'm cool with seeing the magic, although I don't know exactly how to do it, like how I want to do it. A lot of times I don't know how I want to do something. I mostly know what I don't like, or like what I do like, or if they were combined differently or done differently. So for example, I grew up reading Lord of the Rings, and that was like a big influence because it's popular, it's famous. But back then, it wasn't, before the internet, it wasn't quite as popular. And the magic in there, I accept. Uh, I mean, people talk about like hard magic systems and soft magic systems and all that. So, like, I mean, I have thoughts about it. But I mean, I accept the magic that's in Lord of the Rings and the way it works. I mean, I don't know exactly how it works, but like I accept it in the sense that as I'm reading it, I don't question it. Like, yeah, I can accept what's going on. I'm just doodling here. I guess in Lord of the Rings, he was able to describe the scenery or Middle Earth really well, and so that kind of got me into just wanting to create a world like that. But yeah, I can talk about sort of my thoughts on the magic of like what I like, basically. I mean, all of it's made up anyway. And maybe kind of the popular ones. Yeah, because I think it is kind of a big part of the stories that I'm interested in and the story that I'm working on. Yeah, as we wrap this up, I like to do these montages. So this sketch kind of represents my made up world. What do they call it? They call it con world, yeah. Constructed world. I mean, I didn't have names for what I was doing. There's just stuff that I was into, and then later people started calling it things. So yeah, I think that's it for today. Let's wrap this up. But yeah, here's a page of some of my old OCs leading into some of my newer world building things. I'll put this into world building. I don't know where else to put it into the playlist. So yeah, I want to thank you for joining me today for our daily sketching routine, and until next time. Oh, I also want to thank you for supporting the channel if you like these videos, and until next time, keep on sketching.